Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That So Po, and today I'm doing my recommendations and TBR for my June monthly priority, which is Pride Month and the Queer Lit Readathon. If you're not familiar with my monthly priorities, I'll have a video and playlist for them below. But basically, what I'm going to do today is give some recommendations for some favorite books by queer authors that I've read in the past year, as well as tell you my TBR for June. So my first recommendation is Seeing Gender by Iris Gottlieb. This is a really great illustrated nonfiction book that covers just kind of a lot of terminology and basic understanding of gender. I think that the illustrations in this were beautiful and it covered such a great range of topics and had just really a wonderful writing style. If you're somebody who maybe doesn't know as much about gender and wants to understand more the different facets of it, I think this is just a really great book to pick up. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next, I'd like to recommend Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. This is a historical fiction set in the 1950s in Chinatown in San Francisco, and it follows a teenage girl who's kind of discovering her sexuality, as well as dealing with a lot of the issues in her community, such as the Red Scare or the fear of the US government of people being communists. This is incredibly beautifully written and has such an excellent sense of history and time and place, and it's just this queer coming of age story. So I really loved this. I do have an entire standalone review for it, so I will link that below. And my last recommendation is Elatsoe by Darcy Little Badger. This was one of my favorite books last year. I absolutely love it. Darcy Little Badger is Lipan Apache and asexual, and this book is a YA kind of contemporary fantasy set in the real world, except in a different version of the real world where magic exists. And so all of the mythological beings from both Native American and European histories, including things like vampires and fairies, but also a lot of things like, a coyote woman, those sorts of things. They're all real. And in this world, we follow Ellie, or Elatsoe, who has a skill that is passed on through her family for raising the ghosts of dead animals. And so she has a ghost companion who is the ghost of her old dog. And it actually ends up being a murder mystery because her cousin dies in a car accident, and people think that it's an accident, except that she knows that it wasn't an accident, and she has to uncover that and deal with a lot of the sort of issues of being Indigenous in the United States and a lot of the ways that the law does not work for Indigenous communities. This is super sweet. It has a lot of heart and a lot of family, and really addresses really interesting social issues and justice issues, but in a way that is just so engaging. I absolutely love this book, and I do have a standalone review for it as well, so I will link that below. Now moving on to my TBR for June. I'm going to be reading queer books for all of June, but I am going to also try to hit a lot of the prompts for the Queer Lit Readathon Round 7, which is running from June 6th through 12th. That is hosted by Kathy at Kathy Trithardt and Rogan at Rogan Shannon, as well as a guest host of Jean at Bookishthoughts for this round. I'll put up the bingo board. I am going to try to hit as many of these as I can. So as I go through my TBR, I'll tell you which of those it hits. I'm going to take the whole month though, not just the 1 week of the round. The first book on my TBR is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, who is a bisexual Latinx author. I'm going to be buddy reading this with Kristina at Bookworm Dreams, who I will link below. Kristina and her friend Maya have a joint channel. They're Croatian booktubers who read a ton of SFF. I love their channel. Definitely check them out if you like SFF. This is a short story collection that we're gonna buddy read, and it is supposed to have really great commentary on women's bodies. It's supposed to be kind of dark fantasy edging into horror, so I hope that I'll be okay with the stories, but I'm so excited to read this because I've heard amazing things. This satisfies the prompts of choose your own prompt. For me is SFF, shorter than a novel, intersectional, M-Spec, and underrepresented identity. Next on my TBR is Stars in My Pocket Like Grains of Sand by Samuel R. Delaney, who is a classic gay Black SFF author. This is a book that I have wanted to read, and I am very excited because I'm going to read it as part of Amanda at Butch Poetics Queer Futures Book Club. So I'm going to link their announcement video for that below, as well as their channel. They're focusing on reading a lot of classic SFF that imagines queer futures. So this is a science fiction novel that is supposed to really address a lot of cool issues regarding gender and sexuality and race and post-colonialism. It was published in 1984, and I have read other books by Delaney and really enjoyed them, so I definitely want to pick this up. It satisfies the prompts of SFF, vintage, and intersectional. Next is Funny Boy by Shyam Selvadurai, who is a gay Sri Lankan Canadian author. This is a book that was recommended to me by a commenter, Leah Kay. It is a historical fiction set in the 1980s in Sri Lanka during a Tamil Sinhalese conflict, and it's a coming-of-age story of a gay boy. It sounds like it should be pretty heart-wrenching, but very good. This satisfies the prompts of not set on your continent, intersectional, and recommended. Next is Memorial by Brian Washington, who is a gay Black American author. This is a book that I've heard great things about from Russell at Ink and Paper Blog, who I will link below. And this sounds like it's going to be a really fascinating story. It's about two men who are in a relationship, but their relationship is kind of struggling, kind of falling apart. And at this time, one of them has his mother come to stay with them, except that he ends up having to leave while his mother is there to fly back to Japan to be with his dad, who's kind of estranged and dying. And so the other half of the couple is left with his boyfriend's mother visiting. It sounds like a really interesting premise, and it just sounds like it'll be a lot about relationships and identity, and I think that I'll like it quite a lot. This satisfies the prompts of hard-hitting contemporary, intersectional, and recommended. Next is Golem Girl by Riva Lehrer, who is a queer American artist with spina bifida. So this is a memoir that I heard about from Rincey at Rincey Reads, who I will link below, and it sounds like it is so great. It's this memoir kind of Lehrer realizing that she wanted to produce art and really rejecting a lot of ideas of normalcy and accepting her own queerness and disability. It sounds like it is going to be absolutely excellent. It satisfies the prompts of memoir, intersectional, and recommended. Next is The Bested It by Malik Panchali, who is a gay Indian American author. I heard about this book from Adri at Perpetual Pages, who I will link below, and I always love their middle grade recommendations, so I'm super excited about this one. It is a middle grade about a gay Indian American boy who is trying to find the thing that he is best at that makes him special. It just sounds so sweet, and I really want to read this. It satisfies the prompts of brings you joy, intersectional, and recommended. And last on my list is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas, who is a trans Latinx author. Unsurprisingly, this is a book that I heard about from Adri at Perpetual Pages. I will link their review of it below. This is something that I have been meaning to read since Adri talked about it, and I just need to put it on my TBR. So it is a YA contemporary SFF book about Yadriel, who is a trans brujo, and he is trying to kind of prove himself to his family by doing some brujeria rites. And these go a little bit awry, where he summons a ghost, but not the one that he intended, and now he has to help that ghost and also maybe falls in love. It sounds really sweet, and I just really want to read this. So this satisfies the prompts of SFF, intersectional, religion, recommended, and underrepresented identity. So those are all of the books that I want to prioritize for June. I probably won't get to all of these, and I probably will pick up plenty of other books that aren't on this list, many which are queer, many which are not, but these are the ones that I definitely want to prioritize. I also want to make sure that I hit one other prompt for the Queer Lit Readathon, which is 40% BIPOC. Generally speaking, I'm aiming for over 65%, so this should be fine, but I want to make sure that I do reach that prompt as well. Okay, so if you guys have read any of these books, if you have any suggestions of what I absolutely must get to, if you have any thoughts on any of them, any recommendations for me, anything at all, just leave me a comment down below.